Hello Pokemon trainers and welcome back to round 12 of the Pokemon Utrecht Special Event 2023. My name's Jamie Boyd, I'm joined once again by Charlie Merriman and we are having some fantastic games so far and we're going to continue to have them as we go forward in this day too.
We absolutely are. We've just seen a game there. A Belly Bolt could have come out, it didn't unfortunately, but no matter at this stage of the competition obviously you want to win, not just bring out those Pokemon that are exciting.
We mentioned it yesterday, we weren't lying, it did make it into day 2 and there was the proof. It just didn't join the field. Maybe it will in the future.
Yes, indeed, didn't join the field in the previous game, but we did see yet another Terra Flying Dragonite there.
Yeah, absolutely. That's been doing a lot of damage across all of these matches we've seen so far. A lot of players have opted just for the Assault Vest and the Lumberries. Those are the consistent items, and we've already seen the Choice Band picking up once again. A couple of matches that we've seen just some absolute massive damage come out. Yeah,
that is 100% on the rise, and we will very shortly be getting into our round 3 of Swiss Day 2, which will be a really, really exciting match.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got some players that are getting even closer to that top 8. Of course, you need to be winning as much as possible, so the more wins you do get, the closer and closer you are. We've seen some players are getting towards maybe the 10 wins at this point, because we're into round 12. We are getting more and more wins, so yeah, really, really good to see all those players coming forward and putting on some fantastic games.
Fantastic games indeed, and so far both matches today that we featured on stream have gone to 3 games, and it's just a testament to how evenly matched these players are at this point. We're really, really whittling down the very best of the best, and so the matches are just going to keep getting better and better.
Yeah, absolutely. Still just 3 more rounds to go until we do find out who is going to be playing that single elimination in the top 8 all the way up to claiming the championship. So yeah, we'll have to see how that's going to be panning out. It seems we no longer have any undefeated players in this tournament. No 14-0 coming out from this one. Both Alex Gomez and Eric Rios have dropped a game down to the 10-1, but still a very respectable record for sure.
Incredibly respectable, yes. Eric Rios, Oliver Escalin there, who we featured earlier as well. Julio Talau having a fantastic run. And scanning down the leaderboard, Maurice Uteg doing fantastically as well. Aurelien Sula, Leonardo Bananomi, who we featured yesterday with that Choice Band Dragonite.
Yeah, absolutely. So 9-2 still very much in contention for that top 8. 12 wins does guarantee it. You are in the 9-2. That's 3 wins you need to get. 10-1 is definitely a very good insurance as well. But we've got some of the 8-3s coming out here as well. It's still possible. 11-3 might make it. It's going to be quite tricky if you've dropped to 8-3 at this point, but still definitely all to play for. You can still play for the top 16, play for the top 32 as well, because you will be getting those extra championship points the higher up you place, and that is what we are all playing for here.
Absolutely, yes. It's really a test of these trainers' mettle now, trying to not lose a game from here on out if you've already lost 3 games, in order to hope that you can still make the top cut, such as Sam Bentham, their UK player, and plenty of others as well. Xavier, who of course had a disconnected match yesterday and was ultimately declared the winner. But going into the match that we will be streaming very shortly, you saw their names there, we'll be featuring once again the world champion Eduardo Cunha against Marco Silva.
Yeah, international champion as well. So yeah, brilliant, brilliant game coming out here. We're playing for a special event championship, but we're doing so in this match with a world champion and an international champion. So this is going to be a great game for sure.
It's going to be an absolute cracker, and I had a wonderful time talking to Eduardo yesterday after he won, I believe it was Swiss round 3 or Swiss round 4 maybe, that I talked to him. That it was fascinating to get an insight into his team building process and his thoughts going into this tournament, and how, you know, as the world champion, you feel pressure going into subsequent events. There are eyes on you, but once again, showing how you need to keep a cool head when you play this game.
Yeah, absolutely. And some cool picks coming out as well. We've got the Garchomp for Eduardo's side of the field that we did see. A lot of players are opting for the Great Tusk instead. Some players are very much advocates for the Garchomp instead of that Great Tusk. There are a few pluses that Garchomp does have. They match each other pretty well in terms of amount of damage you can do. Garchomp is slightly faster. It's slightly bulkier. The Dragon typing is arguably better for the ground than fighting is. But then you are limited to Earthquake, which both of them have, and then Stomping Tantrum is your choice of single target move for Garchomp, as opposed to the massive Headlong Rush from Great Tusk. So Stomping Tantrum has the potential to be stronger than Headlong Rush. If you fail a move, then 100, doubling the power of the Stomping Tantrum is going to be way stronger. But not the most reliable way of getting that massive damage. So opting for the single target of Headlong Rush is what a lot of players are doing for Great Tusk, but Garchomp can definitely do good things as well.
Yeah, not the most reliable way at all, unless you, for example, on turn 2, have a fake-out Pokemon next to your own, go for a fake-out, that fails, do a big Stomping Tantrum, but then, of course, you're just leaving that other fake-out Pokemon as a sitting duck on the field, not providing anything that turn. So, yeah, it's not the easiest move to work around Stomping Tantrum, but really cool to see Garchomp here, which is a Pokemon we haven't seen so often in Regulation B. It was far more prevalent in Regulation A.
Yeah, absolutely, because Great Tusk did overtake it, and we'll have to see if Ting Lu's going to overtake that as well. That's going to be another ground type that's going to be joining very shortly in the Regulation C. Whether that is going to be taking over the Great Tusk, we will have to wait and see. Because Great Tusk versus Ting Lu, Great Tusk wins that. You can just go for a close combat. Ting Lu's going to maybe fish you sometimes, but yeah, the fact that that's going to be joining the fray as well, what will that do to Garchomp? We'll have to see. If Garchomp's going to have a very good performance here, maybe that will start to pick up and give it enough momentum to carry on into Regulation C, but we'll have to see if that's going to be the case.
Yeah, and what better poster boy for Garchomp than the world champion? We could well see that picking up in usage. And looking briefly at Marco's team, we'll be getting into that in a moment, but Garganackle does catch my eye on that team to look forward to coming up in the next game, potentially, if he brings it out. Yeah,
absolutely. It's a Pokemon that came straight out of the gates in that very first region that we had. G-Sock Lee managing to win with his Poison-type Garganackle. Very, very good call for that tournament, and then it just kind of disappeared again. There are a few players that are still running the Garganackles. Like it popped up here and there in the Oceania International Championships. I think it may have done some well in some other regionals over in Oceania, but otherwise, at least in the West, it seems to have disappeared a bit.
Yeah, it has. It's but it still has plenty of usage, plenty of uses, I should say. I think a real winning point for Garganackle previously was the Salt Cure move, dealing with Pokemon such as Dondozo, where they get set up with the Tatsugiri and their Mows, and therefore get an Omni boost, and attacks aren't doing as much as you would like to the Dondozo, but with Salt Cure you have that residual damage taking the same amount away at the end of every turn. And Dondozo, we still see it, but not quite as prevalent, and I don't think so far today we featured a Dondozo on stream.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the Garganackle is kind of reminiscent to the Glimmorus at this point, because both of them are supposed to be going for the just residual chip damage.
Yeah.
Whether that's in the poisons with the Morphle Spins and the Toxic Debris, or that is the Salt Cure from the Garganackle. The poison is very much permanent, as in you are poisoned, therefore you're just going to take this every single time. Salt Cure is still semi-permanent. If you switch out and switch back in, you get rid of it. But while it's just on the field, even if the Garganackle's being KO'd, the Salt Cure still does stay until you switched out. So very, very similar jobs that they can be doing. Garganackle is just a lot more bulky and can also recover as well, so it has far more longevity on the field. Glimmora is kind of maybe okay to just sacrifice itself to be able to get that residual damage going.
True, yeah, and of course if you if Glimmora gets hit by a physical attack, it will lay a layer of toxic spikes down as well, so you've got to be very careful when dealing with it. It's also worth calling out here that this is a rematch of the OCIC 2020 finals in Marco Fierro and Eduardo, so both these players hungry to see what they can bring to the table this time with 3 years more experience under their belt.
Yeah, absolutely. Marco was able to get Eduardo in that final. Eduardo did have a championship in the Oceania Internationals previously. The previous year he managed to win and came second to Marco in that one, but we are going to get that repeat there. As you can see, we've got Eduardo on the left and Marco on the right, so going to be a very, very good match, given that both of these players have met each other in a finals before.
Yeah, absolutely. They're used to being on this stage facing each other, and we'll see how that experience impacts on their gameplay. Both trainers who respect each other a huge amount. They're both very well known, of course, and I'm sure they both learn from watching each other's games.
Yeah, absolutely. You can definitely learn from any of the top players that are playing here. Lots of different play styles coming out. Maybe something catches your eye that you haven't considered before, and you can put that into your own team building. So, yeah, really, really good players coming out here. Good teams all around. We're going to have to see how those teams are going to match up, especially with the fact that there's the unique choices of the Garchomp on Eduardo's side. Tends to do pretty well against the Garganackle on Marco's side, unless it does go for that Terra and turns itself into the Ghost typing, because Poison was the most common for sure. That's the one that won G-Sock lead the regional championships, but Ghost is also a very good Terra typing as well.
Yeah, and there we go. We can see just how well qualified these players are. Eduardo, hello Eduardo, giving us a lovely wave there. World's top 4 in 2016, and then capitalized on that by 6 years later becoming world champion, OCIC champion, 2019 OCIC runner-up. Basically, Eduardo deals with either Oceania or the entire world.
It would seem so, absolutely. And then, yeah, we've got Marco that's dealing with Oceania as well, but also a regional championship under his belt back in 2019, winning the Yonkoping Regional Championships. So really, really strong showing for both of these trainers. Really good achievements, and we'll have to see if they are pushing for even more with this Utrecht special event as well.
Absolutely, and a very recent achievement in the Bochum Regionals top 8 from Marco Silva. A player who I remember from last year as well was omnipresent, dominant. Did he, I believe he won an online competition with Barrascuda?
Yes,
Marco Silva,
it was one of the international challenges.
Yes,
that he did end up getting top of the ladder with that Barrascuda team. So a very, very creative team builder as well, for sure.
Yeah, and it was a thrill to see, again, a Pokemon that no one had quite explored fully in the meta yet, coming to the fore, thanks to Marco piloting it so well. These trainers just getting set up, and we should be able to have a look at their teams in full detail very shortly.
Yeah, absolutely. They're two very, very good teams. You can see the players there have traded their team sheets. They are having a scan over what they need to be preparing for. In the case of Eduardo, this is the team that he's going to be running here. We did feature this in the round 3 yesterday on the stream as well, so you can see the team there. It does seem that he is running the substitute on the Fluttermane instead, though, over the Calm Mines, which we did see on that round 3, so just something to make a note of there, would be the substitute instead of that Calm Mines.
Absolutely. It's fascinating to see that, because he was talking yesterday about how substitute has been really crucial for this Fluttermane, but clearly based on his experiences yesterday, he's wanted to change that for a Calm Mind, boost up that Fluttermane. Really interesting choice, since Fluttermane is a Pokemon that's on the field for a good time, not a long time. And so trying to set up a Calm Mind can work against you, but otherwise, looking across to the rest of his team, of course, we have that Amoonguss there, able to provide some ample support, and this wonderful Garchomp, which might take some chip damage from Life Orb, but of course will deal some chip damage to any physical attackers with that rough skin ability.
Yeah, absolutely. Going to be doing some very, very big damage all around with the Life Orb boosting that. So that is probably the most unique choice coming out for Eduardo here. And most of the other Pokemon you would expect to see at this top level, it would just be, do you see Great Tusk or do you see Garchomp for your choice of ground type coming out here? There's no choice of ground type at all coming out for Marco. Instead, we do have the Garganacl coming back out into the fray, and also the Mimikyu joining the field. Fluttermane is the most common Pokemon that we see at the moment. The Ghost Fairy typing seems to be very good, and then because you've got the Fluttermane, do you have space for Mimikyu? Apparently Marco does.
He apparently does, and it's fantastic to see Mimikyu, especially with that Curse, which again is a move that was more common, I feel, against Dondozo. But clearly it still provides usage for Marco here. I'd love to see that come out, see what it does. I also want to call out the Electric Terror type on the Amoonguss there.
Yeah, that's a pretty unique one. You do only get one weakness when you turn into Terra Electric, so it's a very good defensive one. You do make yourself weak to ground type attacks, which would have been neutral anyway against the Amoonguss, so not too much crossover there in terms of the damage that it can do. But yeah, a really, really unique Terra typing, a very good defensive one at that. A type that's defensively not many trainers make use of, even though it does end up just having one weakness.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not one to be sniffed at, and one that I assumed we'd see more the Electric Terror type. And there it is, that Amoonguss and Roaring Moon sitting on the field for Marco, and meanwhile it's Kingambit and Fluttermane for Edu.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Fluttermane joining the field here. Special attack is the boost of choice for the Booster Energy there, followed up by the Booster Energy on that Roaring Moon as well, going to be able to get the attack boost. So no speed boost for any of these, content with just increasing the damage output of both of the Pokemon here. You're able to do some absolutely massive damage with the Fluttermane now. You have to really just go for your Terror on the Roaring Moon if you want to be able to survive through this Dazzling Gleam that can be coming out, because you do want to be setting up with your Dragon Dance, but then you're going to have to contend with the fact that Dazzling Gleam is going to be this red move. If you do go for that Terror, you're going to be able to pretty safely get that Dragon Dance up. If you go for a Rage Powder to keep it safe, then the Kingambit won't be able to follow up with any kind of attack to do the extra damage. You can probably just go for a Spore on this turn. Not much is threatening the Amoonguss with a KO on this turn. And
it's worth calling out there that, in fact, Fluttermane does run that substitute here, that in the previous team preview, clearly it was an incorrect Fluttermane set there. So now we can see the correct one. The Fluttermane for Edu is running that substitute, as we see a Terror coming out for Marco onto his Roaring Moon into the Flying type, doing its best Dragonite impression and becoming a Flying Terror type on this Roaring Moon, which could well be going for an Acrobatics or something similar later, as a Dazzling Gleam comes out, and indeed the Roaring Moon takes it much better than it would have done otherwise. Acrobatics does come out from Roaring Moon into the Fluttermane. It's enough to pick up the knockout, and Fluttermane goes down.
Yeah, absolutely. No need to set up a Dragon Dance. That is going to be strong enough for sure. But is the Assurance going to be strong enough? Absolutely. It would target down the Roaring Moon. So the combination of that Dazzling Gleam was enough to get that KO.
It really was, and it's one Pokemon down each for Edu and for Marco, as Amoonguss is able to go for a Spore and King Gambit taking that sleep. So for the next turn, it won't be able to provide anything at all, but what a fast-paced start to the match.
Yeah, so you traded a Pokemon for a Pokemon. You've traded a Terra for a sleeping King Gambit. So was that a trade that was worthwhile? We'll have to see as we go into these future turns. Talonflame was left in the back. A lot of players do just leave with the Talonflame to get that Tailwind immediately. Leaving it in the back leaves you the option to get a late-game Tailwind that can be very beneficial as well. King Gambit's not going to be able to make the most of it because it's going to be very slow, and it's also asleep, so it can't even attack this turn guaranteed. So even if you do set up the Tailwind for the future, the Iron Bundle has pretty free reign in the field at this point. It can go for whatever attack it would want to go for, whether that's the Hydro Pump into the Talonflame to try and get the KO, or if you want to just reliably go for the Freeze Dry from some extra chip damage. The Talonflame can just go be spored here by the Amoonguss. You can go for a Brave Bird and get some very good damage, but Talonflame is not tended to run too much in its physical attacks. It does opt for that bulk instead. Shouldn't be able to KO the Amoonguss, definitely not if it's switching out.
Yes, and Amoonguss does indeed instead switch out in favor of the Iron Hands, joining the field a very bulky Pokemon, also a very offensive Pokemon. Brave Bird coming out from Talonflame with a critical hit onto the Iron Bundle, bringing it down to about a third of its HP. Hydro Pump, fortunately, does connect into the Talonflame. It's enough to pick up the knockout, so Edu is already down to his last two Pokemon. King Gambit is going to be remaining asleep for this turn. It's the mandatory first turn of sleep. After that, Amoonguss Spore. I hope he's enjoying his nap, because Edu certainly is not enjoying watching him sleep.
Yeah, absolutely. And so now the Iron Bundle is going to be the Pokemon in the back for Edu. Down to the last two Pokemon here. You do have Fake Out active on your Iron Hands, so you can potentially break this Focus Sash on the opposing Iron Bundle. Iron Bundle on Marco's side of the field isn't threatening too much into the King Gambit, so it really just needs to be going for the Freeze Dries into the opposing Iron Bundle, because you're able to knock out opposing Iron Bundles in 2 shots with your Freeze Dry, and that could be what Marco wants to go for here. You can just go for an immediate Freeze Dry and a Drain Punch, potentially, to be able to pick up the knockout on the Iron Bundle. King Gambit probably needs to go for the defensive Terror to be able to survive any fighting attacks that the Iron Hands would throw its way. It would turn into a Fire type though, and that would leave it weak to Hydro Pumps in the future as well.
And let's turn those conditional woods into definites. It does go for the Terra. It's a Terra Fire type on the King Gambit. It's currently asleep. Will it wake up this turn? We'll have to see. But certainly its defense is bolstered against any fighting type moves that the Iron Hands could be throwing out, as Iron Bundle keeps itself safe on Edu's side with a Protect. King Gambit does take another turn of sleep, and we can see the frustration on Edu's face there as it remains asleep. A Hydro Pump, though, does miss onto the King Gambit. So, you know, that is that's luck for luck there, as close combat comes out from Iron Hands, bringing King Gambit down to just above half of its health and eating up a drop to its defense and its special defense, so slightly less bulky than it was before. Yeah,
very nicely covered by Marco there. That KOs the King Gambit if it doesn't go for the Terror, because close combat is easily enough to pick up the KO, and then it covers for it with the Hydro Pump, which unfortunately does have that shaky accuracy and does end up missing in this turn. So now, which Iron Bundle is going to be moving first here, because that's going to be able to, either the Iron Bundle on Edu's side of the field, Freeze Dry is going to be able to KO the opposing Iron Bundle. Hydro Pump would almost certainly have KO'd that King Gambit, even with the Assault Vest, you'd be doing massive damage, but Marco not opting to find out whose Iron Bundle is moving first this turn, instead switching out into the Amoonguss.
Yeah, Marco has this luxury of being able to switch for a Pokemon in the back, whereas Edu is down to his final 2, and it's a Freeze Dry coming out into the Amoonguss. It's really good damage, brings it down to a quarter of its health, but it has that Berry to contend with. So Amoonguss is recovering back to about half of its HP. Volt Switch coming out from Iron Hands into the Iron Bundle. It deals pretty much half of the health to the Iron Bundle as Iron Hands goes back to Marco, and he will be bringing out his own Iron Bundle from the back.
Yeah, and then, well, will the King Gambit go for? It's probably going to be waking up this turn. Is incredibly likely to. Yeah, there it is. And it's going to be doing some pretty good damage here with the Terra Blast.
Is the Terra Blast going into that Amoonguss as a super effective hit? Looks like it's not. It's going into the Iron Bundle, but it's on such low health that it will take it out anyway. And that critical hit, I doubt mattered at all, because it will be a neutral hit into the dual Water Ice type that is that Iron Bundle.
Yeah, definitely not going to matter there at all. It was easily going to be in range of the Terra Blast, so nice, easy knockout there but then you get the switch straight back into your Iron Hands. That's reset the potential to go for a fake out here. You can easily go for a fake out on a Sport if you do want to. If you fake out the King Gambit, then that's going to stop any Terra Blast going into the Amoonguss. If you fake out the Iron Bundle, that's going to stop the Freeze Dries. Freeze Dry may not be enough on Amoonguss. Terra Blast definitely would, so that might be why the Iron Bundle's just going for Protective Scout out for that fake out.
Scouting out for the potential fake out from Iron Hands. Amoonguss keeps itself safe with a Protect. It won't be taking any damage this turn as Iron Hands goes for the Wild Charge into the King Gambit. It's not enough for the knockout. King Gambit now getting really quite low. Iron Hands takes that recoil damage as a Terra Blast does come out from King Gambit, and that is going into the Iron Hands. It's really not taking too much damage at all, a testament to how bulky that Iron Hands is.
Yeah, absolutely. Really, really nice call out for both of these players here. Not attacking into the Pokemon that did go for the Protect, getting that extra damage. But now King Gambit is definitely in range of any attack that the Iron Hands would want to go for, whether that's the Wild Charge or the Close Combat. Nice going for the Wild Charge there, just getting a tiny bit of recoil as opposed to your drop defenses. So you're not going to be taking as much damage from the Iron Bundle because you're still going to be so bulky with that Assault Vest. It's really not going to be doing too much damage. Amoonguss has used its Protect now, so it does need to contend with the fact that it can be attacked by the Freeze Dry or the Terra Blast, but we have seen the Iron Hands on Marco's side of the field did seem to outspeed the King Gambit, therefore there should be no Terra Blast going into that Amoonguss.
No, there shouldn't, absolutely, and it really is mind games at this point. Who's protecting, who's not? A very close call in terms of timing there for Edu. Amoonguss going for a Rage Powder, redirecting any attacks towards itself as opposed to its partner Iron Hands, but you can't redirect a spread move such as Icy Wind, which connects on both Iron Hands and Amoonguss and dropping both of their speed. That Amoonguss now on dangerously low health as King Gambit is able to follow up with the Assurance, double the power if the target has already taken damage that turn, and so Amoonguss goes down. It is now King Gambit and Iron Bundle against the Iron Hands, but the King Gambit goes down due to a Wild Charge from Iron Hands, and Iron Bundle does not like staring down an Iron Hands.
No, absolutely not. So the Icy Wind there, crucial to allow that King Gambit to get off the attack to KO the Amoonguss on that turn. But now Iron Bundle needs to do half damage to an Assault Vest Iron Hands, and it's unlikely to be able to do the damage. But Freeze Dry is going to try.
Unlikely. Will it get a freeze? It won't. So Close Combat goes into the Iron Bundle, and it wraps up the game for Marco. So Marco takes the first game.
Yeah, absolutely. Very, very nicely played from both of these players. Leaving that Iron Hands and Amoonguss into the late game to be able to get that extra support and do that little bit of damage that was needed to clean up that game. So, yeah, Talonflame in the back didn't seem like it was doing too much for Eduardo there, because a Tailwinds is always really nice, and getting it on the first turn can be very nice on the initial getting of the momentum, but all it did was Raybird there, and then it just got KO'd afterwards to the Hydro Pump, so not too impactful in that game. It didn't seem like the Tailwind was too necessary, given that you've got the Iron Hands and the Amoonguss, which are two very slow Pokemon on Marco's side of the field. You do have access to Icy Wind as well if you're just bringing the Iron Bundle, and then that can still do good damage as well with the Freeze Dries. So Talonflame, again, I asked this question yesterday, is it entirely necessary to bring to this game?
Yeah, it's something that Edu will be reflecting on going into Game 2, and I think another thing worth calling out from that first game is how even though Marco's Terra was used up so quickly and with, you know, it was able to get an acrobatics off, but then it went straight down, he was still able to win the game. So it just goes to show how crucial the timing of Terra can be, and even if it disappears just like that, it doesn't necessarily mean the game is over.
Well, it was used to get an entire KO on the Fluttermane, and Fluttermane is one of the biggest damage dealers that Eduardo has available, especially that he brought to the match. The Garchomp wasn't brought, so wasn't going to be able to make use of the massive damage that the Life Orb does provide as well. So yeah, definitely a worthwhile trade, it seemed, in the end, to just use up your Terra defensively so that you can survive the Dazzling Gleam, and then offensively so you can definitely get the one-hit KO on the opposing Fluttermane. That ended up being a trade in Marco's favor, so very, very nicely done to recognize that Terra was useful for just one turn, and that's all that was needed.
Absolutely, yeah, and again, and that also that goes to show another point how the timing of the Terra and sort of a management of resources, how even though Marco lost his Roaring Moon, that was a trade worth making and something worth bearing in mind, especially in these high-octane battles where your mind can be somewhat all over the place. You've got to stick to some kind of game plan, your practice with previous team compositions, for example, and yeah, sticking to what you had in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So accepting the sleep as well on the Amoonguss was something very important in that first turn, because you did have to sacrifice a sleeping King Gambit to get the KO on the Roaring Moon, and it stayed asleep for a couple of turns, so it wasn't able to do too much on those and allowed Marco to get into the position that he did want. So taking in consideration, do you take care of the Roaring Moon very quickly? That has joined the field with this Amoonguss still, but a little bit of a switch up here. No King Gambit coming out. Instead, it's going to be the Iron Bundle paired up with the Fluttermane. So going to be able to threaten down both these Pokemon very well with the Ice-type moves instead of the King Gambit. You may be able to pick up the knockout on the opposing Amoonguss if you get the combination of the Freeze Dry and the Shadow Ball, because you do get the special attack boost once again on the Fluttermane, as opposed to the attack boost on the Roaring Moon. But if you're trying to stop the sleeps, that's a potential opportunity for the Roaring Moon to go for a Dragon Dance as well. That would put it faster, assumedly trains to be faster than an Iron Bundle and a Fluttermane after that Dragon Dance, and then would be able to do some absolutely massive damage. So do you choose? Do you try and get rid of the sleep from the Amoonguss, allowing this Roaring Moon to potentially get the Dragon Dance up? Or do you maybe go for a Dazzling Gleam and an Icy Wind to try and hit both of the Pokemon, and then just allow one of your Pokemon to go to sleep to try and stop this Dragon Dance?
Yeah, it's a really good lesson in Pokemon that complement each other in the lead. What the Amoonguss doesn't cover, the Roaring Moon does, and vice versa. But getting into our first turn, it is Roaring Moon going for another Terror, as it did in that first game, into that Flying type. Its booster energy is used up, so it will be able to deal out some massive acrobatics damage coming into this turn, if that is what it's gone for. It's Freeze Dry coming out from Iron Bundle into the Amoonguss, again taking it down to about a quarter of its health, but it's a freeze on the Amoonguss. The Amoonguss might not be able to move this turn. It eats its berry while frozen somehow and recovers some health, but will it be able to thaw out this turn and do what it was intending to do? We will have to see, as Shadow Ball comes out into the Amoonguss, and it's not enough for the knockout, so the Amoonguss thawing could indeed prove to be crucial or not. As Acrobatics comes out into the Fluttermane, it takes out that Fluttermane, so once again Fluttermane is down very early on in the battle, and all eyes on this Amoonguss now, and no, it is frozen solid. Incredibly frustrating for Marco, but a nice perk of using Freeze Dry.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes you do get that. Just a nice little freeze. Would have been very nice for Marco to be able to get off, assumedly, a Spore into the Iron Bundle, and that would have freed up the Roaring Moon completely. It would have been able to go for the Dragon Dance on this turn for sure. Getting the knockout on the Fluttermane, very, very nice for it, taking care of that on the turn one as well. King Gambit has joined the field. That's still going to threaten good damage. After an Icy Wind, you can get that follow-up with the Assurance, and we've already seen that Dazzling Gleam and Assurance was enough to be able to KO the opposing Roaring Moon, and the Icy Winds being super effective would almost certainly be able to do that as well.
Absolutely. Roaring Moon this turn keeping itself safe with a Protect. Iron Bundle going for that Icy Wind, which of course won't connect into the Roaring Moon after the Protect, but it does connect into the Amoonguss. So it is down now. No more worries about Amoonguss coming for Edu, very fortunately for him. King Gambit in this position is going to go for an Assurance. It was going into the Amoonguss, I believe, actually, but it's Roaring Moon. It's redirected towards, which of course keeps itself safe. So again, one Pokemon apiece lost for both of these trainers as Iron Hands joins the field.
Yeah, it was very nice targeting from that King Gambit. It did go for that Assurance into the Amoonguss slot, and if it goes for that, then you're going to be able to just either KO the Amoonguss, because assumedly, even if it tried to protect, it's unlikely to be able to break through the freeze, and then if it stays in, suddenly the Assurance is redirected into the Roaring Moon and would still get the double power. If the Roaring Moon protects and the Amoonguss switches out, then it would have got the double power on whatever switched in as well, so really nice covering for that.
Yep, fantastic covering indeed as Iron Bundle gets a Protect off and keeps itself safe from the fake out that was coming out from Iron Hands there. Acrobatics coming out from Roaring Moon, which goes into the Iron Bundle, keeps itself safe once again. So a really good call from Edu, both of the attack going into that protected Iron Bundle. Iron Head from King Gambit taking it down to just below half of its health on the Roaring Moon as we get into this next turn.
Yeah, absolutely. That Iron Head's just over 50%. That means that Sucker Punch will be incredibly close to be able to KO that opposing Roaring Moon. So do you risk that? Because it's a little bit over half, and Sucker Punch is only a little bit weaker than Iron Heads. If you risk that, that could get the KO before another Acrobatics. Of course, you could Sucker Punch into a Dragon Dance, which would be very, very bad indeed. But yeah, really, really close that Roaring Moon could be knocked out here. Definitely not this turn if it's going for Protect, though.
Not this turn, no. Roaring Moon keeping itself safe, copying Iron Bundle from the previous turn as Freeze Dry was going into that slot. Roaring Moon, of course, kept safe from that Freeze Dry. Iron Hands, on the other hand, goes for Volt Switch into Iron Bundle, deals about half of the health to Iron Bundle as it goes back to Marco in favor of something in the back.
Yeah, it's not going to be that Among Us anymore. That would have been really nice to get some Regenerator and potentially Thor in the future, but it's just going to be the Iron Bundle instead.
The Iron Bundle that has to receive an Iron Head, taking it down to just below half of its health, so that's not an attack it appreciates taking, but of course Iron Bundle is far bulkier on the physical side of its defense as opposed to the special side.
Yeah, absolutely, and this Kingambit is doing really nice. It's going to be able to just about knock out both Pokemon with 2 Iron Heads, but then that's still incredibly close and not quite Sucker Punch range, which is what you would want to happen. You'd want to be able to just go for a Sucker Punch and stop either the Acrobatics or the Ice and Wind, the Freeze Dries that come out from the Iron Bundle, but it's not too bad. The Kingambit is still at full HP. It's not threatened really by either of these Pokemon at the moment, so it can just go for an Iron Head / an Assurance, whichever one it wants, without the need for Sucker Punch at this point. It would still be enough to just survive and then get the Iron Heads.
It would be. Roaring Moon is not going to be the one taking the damage because it's Iron Hands coming back out as Marco's Iron Bundle keeps itself safe. Kingambit attempting to Sucker Punch into the Iron Hands slot, but of course it just switched in, so will be kept safe from any damage. And Freeze Dry coming out into the Iron Hands, but dealing a little bit of chip damage, and again a testament to how bulky this Pokemon is.
Yeah, absolutely massively bulky with that Assault Vest as well. You've got that Iron Hands back on the field. That is potential Fake Out pressure once again. It's potentially just go for a Volt Switch into the Iron Bundle. We saw that it did half already, so Volt Switch would be able to KO and reset that Fake Out pressure. Or you can just go for the Close Combat and get that KO on the Kingambit as well. So the Iron Hands at the moment really, really well positioned for whichever KO it wants, or even just to go for the Fake Out to free up the Iron Bundle, but potentially not a Fake Out hit if the Iron Bundle is just switching out instead.
Which indeed it does, and this is a far more positional game than we saw in the first round between these two players. As Roaring Moon comes back out and Freeze Dry goes into the Roaring Moon that's just switched in, and that goes down for Marco. So his Terror is over and his Roaring Moon is down. He's down to his final 2 Pokemon in the Iron Bundle and the Iron Hands. It's Iron all round with Iron Bundle on Edu's side and this Steel-type Kingambit. As a close combat is enough to pick up the one-hit knockout, of course being quad super effective against the Kingambit as a Dark and Steel type. So it was around for a while, but now Kingambit is down, and both of these trainers are down to their final 2 Pokemon, and it is that Garchomp coming back in for Edu, as well as, of course, the Iron Bundle from the back for Marco.
Yeah, that is a very nice switch up to be able to take care of this Iron Hands. Earthquake or Stomping Tantrum should surely be enough, given the fact that Iron Hands has given itself a defense drop. It just has to be able to get that attack off. You've got Iron Bundle versus Iron Bundle. This is one of the most awkward positions to be in. Both of them are just Focus Sash. Both of them are assumedly going to be the same speed. So if the Iron Bundle gets a Freeze Dry into the Garchomp first, that's a follow-up KO with the Iron Hands, and that is game over. If the Iron Bundle on Edu's side of the field moves first, that is a Freeze Dry KO into the Iron Bundle, and then you follow up with the Ground-type attack. So whichever Iron Bundle moves first here could be very, very impactful.
Could be very impactful indeed, as we see the Terror coming out from Edu finally onto the Garchomp, and it's into the Fire type. So those Freeze Dries will not be doing half as much damage as they would have done before. Garchomp originally being a Dragon Ground type, so would have taken double super effective damage from that.
Oh!
But Marco makes the call, and it's the Hydro Pump into Garchomp, just terrestrialized into the Fire type, and it goes down. So after all that, would have been better off staying as a Dragon Ground type in that particular situation. Really tough call to make for Edu. Freeze Dry coming out from his Iron Bundle. It does take care of Marco's Iron Bundle, but Iron Hands does far prefers facing an Iron Bundle than the other way around, and it's close combat coming out from that Pokemon into Iron Bundle, and Edu is defeated. It is Marco Silva that takes Game 2 and Swiss round 3 of Day 2 of the Utrecht special event.
Yeah, and over a world champion as well, so fantastic play. That is one of the drawbacks of Terror, let's say, because obviously a defensive Terror would be very nice. That would have survived a Freeze Dry every single day.
Yeah.
But the Hydro Pump, very, very nicely caught there. You had to win the speed tie, assumedly speed tie on the Iron Bundle to start off with, but being able to get that call of, yes, you are going to Terror into the Fire type, therefore Hydro Pump is the choice rather than Freeze Dry. Very, very nicely done indeed.
Very nicely done, and it's something that's been introduced with Generation 9 into Pokemon VGC, predicting the Terrors as well. We've seen it before. We assume you're going to Terror, going for that move that would be super effective if you do, going for it, and it picks up a big knockout as we saw there. So it's just just as important to know when not to Terra.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was kind of like a 50-50 and a 50-50, because you've got the chance of moving first with the Iron Bundle, so that's a 50-50 chance. And then do you go for the Terra? Because if it's Freeze Dry into regular Garchomp, easily a KO. If it's Hydro Pump into the Fire type, we saw was easily a KO. So it does come down to those little bits of mind games, as well as the little bit of fortune that you did need the Iron Bundle on your side to move first as well.
As well as the fact that Hydro Pump can miss, and fortunately it did connect that turn. If it didn't connect, that could have been a very different story to wrap up that game, and we could have been into a game 3. But Marco trusting the accuracy of his Iron Bundle and able to clean up against the reigning world champion. Wow, and a pretty decisive victory, I would say. I'm getting my breath back.
Yeah, not dropping a game there as well. Taking a 2-0 win over a world champion is no easy feat at all. So very, very well done. Of course, an international champion himself, so nothing to scoff out there at all. We've seen those kind of plays from Marco before, being able to make the call and absolutely doing exactly the same thing in this game here.
Those predictions, and especially at this stage in the competition, perhaps in day 1, the players are able to stick to more predicted plays. But, you know, when you're up against opponents of this caliber, you have to sort of think a few turns ahead, not even just the next turn ahead, as to how you're going to position yourself. And that game 2 was far more positional than game 1. Game 1, it was quicker knockouts. Game 2, it was more about being in the right place at the right time in order to pick up the knockouts you need, and knowing that, you know, play it as a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the knockouts that were needed were that Flutterman on turn 1. Both games. There was just KO'd immediately. That frees up the Iron Hands. Yeah. Because in the game 1, Garchomp wasn't brought. There wasn't really too much for Iron Hands in that first game, because Fluttermane, as soon as it's taken care of, that's the best answer. Getting the fairy type damage onto the Iron Hands, that's what you're looking for. And that was just taken care of in both games. So Iron Hands was freed up a lot. Then it had to be Garchomp to be able to deal with it in the future in the game 2, but just wasn't allowed to because of that fantastic predict.
Yeah, exactly. Iron Hands was given free reign there, and as you saw, the damage it was taking, it's a Pokemon that doesn't mind shrugging off quite a bit of damage. Obviously, you have to keep an eye on it, but especially with that Assault Vest, it can stick around for definitely a long time.
Yeah, Freeze Dry was, what, doing 10, 15%?
Yeah.
And like Iron Bundle's got very respectable special attacks, so like you wouldn't expect that little damage coming out onto a Pokemon. It just shows the testament of Iron Hands' bulk and why you need to save your answers, i.e. the Fluttermane.
Yeah, exactly. Fluttermane went down on turn 1 in both games, I believe, for Eddie there. And it's a Pokemon that's hard to... It obviously could sweep up in the late game, but it's certainly not a Pokemon you want to switch into attack, because its special defense is respectable, very respectable, but its physical defense somewhat lacking.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've seen bulkier Fluttermanes across the course this weekend, because the majority of trainers have been opting for the choice specs. We've got the booster energy on Eduardo's one here, so still has the opportunity to rerun more bulky, but maybe you are investing a bit more into special attack because you're not getting as much damage as you would for a choice specs, therefore you need a bit more investment into your special attack, and then that would sacrifice some of your defensive investment. So maybe if Fluttermane's able to survive in acrobatics with the right training, maybe not if you've got an attack boost on the booster energy as well, because that is a pretty strong attack. We've seen how strong something like a Terra Blast from a Dragonite can be. Roaring Moon pretty much matches that with its booster energy. Yeah,
it really does. The face-off of the Dragons, we've seen quite a lot of them, including that Salamence, of course, yesterday. I wonder if that's still doing the rounds in the competition. But wow, so Marco defeats Edu again, a repeat of the OCIC 2020 final.
And that was also a 2-0 victory for Marco as well, so definitely, pretty much a repeat. So very, very fantastic to be able to bring back all these matches that have been historical in BGC and then be able to get somewhat a repeat with the players as well. That doesn't happen too often. We saw it maybe in the finals of Wolf Flip versus Ashton Cox back over in the US. That was a historical moment as well because that was a repeat. Then we've got another one here, which is really, really great to see.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. And we can expect more of these fairy tale matchups, of course, as the day goes on and the very, very best at the Utrecht special event continue to be whittled down. Well, I mean, the quality of these games is just ramping up and up and up, and it was already in such a high place, and I can't wait to see where we go next. But shortly, we'll hopefully be hearing from the winner of that game, Marco Silva, in just a few minutes' time. Yeah,
absolutely. Should be getting him just set up just in a moment. So, yeah, very, very close to the end of this day 2 Swiss now. We've only got 2 more rounds now after this. This is getting to the crunch time. This is getting to the point where we didn't have any players that are still undefeated, so there's going to be a couple of players with 11 wins. Not quite enough yet. 11 might do it, 12 definitely does it. So we'll be getting very closely to the point where we are able to decide who is going to be advancing to that top 8. And with Marco winning that previous game, he's one step closer.
He's one step closer. Edu, he could still do it. Fingers crossed for him as he goes into his next round, and maybe going back to the drawing board, thinking about the things that happened in that game and preserving his resources in the Fluttermane and in the Garchomp and Winter Terror and all of those questions that were coming out from that round. How do you think Edu could have adapted better? Of course, he lost his Fluttermane very early on. That didn't help. He was caught off guard by the prediction of the Terror, but anything else he might have been able to do?
Preserving the Fluttermane seemed to be key, because Iron Hands was very important.
Yeah.
And we saw how impactful just Assurance on turn 1 was, where like on the turn 1, Roaring Moon was taken care of immediately. Dazzling Gleam Assurance, that's a KO. Could that have been Icy Wind and Assurance on the first turn? Because then you'd been able to preserve the Fluttermane in the back, and Iron Bundle and the King Gambit would have been able to deal with the Roaring Moon, and then you've still got Fluttermane to be able to deal with the Iron Hands.
Yeah, so there you go. You've got to look after your frailer Pokemon, at least on the physically defensive side. But we've just had confirmation that we can now go to our interview with your winner of that previous round. It's Marco Silva.
And welcome back, ladies, gents, and lovely peeps. We are here with the winner of our Day 2 Swiss Round 3, Marco Silva, in what was an emphatic set. Very, very high octane pressure coming out from both of these trainers, veterans in their individual respects. Of course, Marco, congratulations. What an amazing set and display of very good understanding of your board state and just making those solid reads and plays. It must feel really great for you right now.
Yeah, like honestly, like obviously, like being a world champion is always crazy. And yeah, I've been playing with Edu basically since I graduated to Master Division.
Yep.
And it's always been like really great games since like 2019 to now.
Yeah, I mean, this is a rematch, right, of back in Oceania International Championships, where naturally speaking, you were able to go ahead and actually win it out. So a lot of understandings when it comes to each player's playstyle, right? So you kind of have a bit of a tap on how Edu plays, but you are able to force and use that knowledge in order to sort of have a tap on, okay, he needs to go for this because he has to respect the Pokemon that are on my field. Like, for example, we saw game 1, you made an incredible read into the King Gambit, which had just terrestrialized into the Fire type. Unfortunately, the Hydro Pump did miss, but it was a really good read, right?
Yeah, honestly, I'm not 100% sure if that was going to kill, but like in that situation in which I think he had only 2 Pokemon, since both Talonflame and Fireman were gone.
Yeah.
So I thought, like, of course, like in Gambit, I cannot protect since it's AV. If I just go with Close Combat plus I drop in that slot, if he terras, I just maybe if I get the KO, that's also fine.
Yep.
But like if he doesn't terra, I just get the Close Combat off, and then it should be gone.
Well, exactly, because you knew that you could at least checkmate it in that situations. So you had a couple of a clear sight on the necessary steps that you needed to make, even though there was the sleep. I think there was a full sleep turn effect onto the King Gambit. It was a full sleep, right? All 3 turns, if I'm not mistaken. Or was it just about, I think, second?
Yeah, maybe it was 2. I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah. But I mean, regardless, you were able to do really well. Going into game 2 then, you had a bit of a change-up of the leads. How were your thoughts going into it in anticipation of Edu having to try to counteract all of that offense you had?
So I tried to think like what should have gone wrong like by me leading Amoonguss and Roaring Moon. So I thought like maybe could have gone for like a more offensive lead, maybe with Talonflame plus Garchomp.
Yep.
Since he could have just went for Taunt and EQ.
Yep.
I'm not gonna spoiler my play, but I already had in mind like what to do in the case he would have gone for that. So I was pretty confident with my lead.
You had a backup plan based on
exactly.
if the turn didn't turn out to be quite nice
Exactly.
for you, right? And we saw, even though the Talonflame was there, it was present, it had previously set up Tailwind, it wasn't able to do as much, right? It didn't have that immediate offensive pressure, whilst on the other hand, you were able to completely utilize that.
Yeah, I think like by me having 3 Pokemon that were able to get the KO straight away when it KO on Talonflame, maybe it was kind of scared to bring it like in the lead. So also that kind of worked out for me.
Yeah, it most definitely did. And talk about a bundle of presents. Your Iron Bundle did a really good job in really positioning himself. Obviously, it was able to land a very important hydro pump, which came out from a Mamma Mia moment of that KO into the Garchomp, which had only just terrestrialized into the fire. So please talk to me a bit about that prediction there.
So in that turn, I just saw, like Edu, of course, like the world champion,
Yeah.
is probably one of the best players like they ever play in this game.
Yeah.
So I just thought like, in this case, if I go for freeze dry, I get the KO. So if I win the speed tie, I just win.
Yeah.
So to maximize his winning chance, he's most likely gonna terrestrialize. So I'm kind of forced to predict. And also, other than predict, I have to win the speed tie and also a hydro pump.
Yeah.
So I figured out that was the play that he might consider like not really covering that much, since he might just like won the speed tie or just like just I don't know, avoid the hydro pump or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just knew that I was going for the terrestrialize to fire type. I just went for hydro
You
pump.
felt like he had to go for what he considered the more optimal play
Exactly,
and
exactly.
safer based on the situation, because he already was on the back foot, right? So he had to either make a very decisive read based off of maybe perhaps a read of yours, but he took it. He was like, okay, in that scenario, I just want to make sure I could guarantee myself. He's Marco's surely not going to go for the hydro pump into the Garchomp that terrestrializes, right? But no, you're able to absolutely perfectly call that.
Yeah, I honestly like, but just seeing his Garchomp, like I saw it was life orb, so
Yeah.
I also kind of like thought since in his speed since he has tailwind. So I was not 100% sure if that was gonna get the kill, since honestly like I never went for hydro pump into a fire type Garchomp.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that worked out for me.
Oh my god, and it was such a beautiful display of understanding the board state and what needs to be done in order to find your way through to your win condition. So right now, how does it feel? I think, are you X1 if I'm not
No,
mistaken?
I'm X2.
You're
I'm,
X2, so
yeah.
that would be 10-2 right now,
Exactly.
correct? Perfect. So you still are in with a very solid chance to propel yourself straight into top 8. So a couple more rounds. How are you feeling going into it?
Honestly, I don't know. I feel like I just gotta play my best, and because the team is solid, of course. I played it in Bochum too. I got to play there.
Yep.
So yeah, I know like my team is really good into basically everything. I can basically win into everything if I just gotta
Every
really,
matchup.
Yeah, like
Right?
every matchup there is
Yeah.
really like common in the format.
Yeah.
So I just thought like if I play this team, even if it's like most of the matchups are just 50-50s.
Yep.
Maybe I can just like outplay my opponent, since I've been playing this team for basically a month.
I mean, and you've done incredibly well with it
Yeah.
so far. It has been absolutely phenomenal to see you. So I guess with further projections on what the goal is, obviously now, the current short distance is you want to make it into top 8. You want to make it even further, maybe get that title as well, of course, for the special event. At the current moment, do you have any plans of going into the European International Championships held in London next month?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like I really like wanna feel again the feeling of winning international. So
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you got a bit of a taste of it down under in Australia and Oceania, of course, in 2020. So you're out there to try to chase the European one
Absolutely.
now. Oh my God. I mean, having that sort of passion and drive is something that is very credible and something to look up to for newer players or even more less successful players when it comes to their achievements. Maybe they haven't put in as much work or they just haven't had good enough luck. So do you have any advice that you would be able to bestow upon them when it comes to trying to find a sweet spot when it comes to your consistency?
So all you gotta do is basically when you lose, either if you win, if you lose, just make sure you understand everything that went wrong. Because even if you win, something might have gone wrong. So yeah, all you gotta do is analyze your matches and just keep going. Because if you're good at the game, at some point you're gonna do well.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. It's trying to put in the work as much as you can, kind of understand and experiment, right? It's not always about analyzing the meta. Just get yourself in there.
Exactly.
Try to figure out what you can see, what you can adapt to, what is popular, what works, what doesn't. But you've done an incredible job, I think, bringing back the acrobatics Roaring Moon that hadn't seen a lot of sunshine, let's say, even though there's droughts and photosynthesis taken into consideration. It's quite nice because it's a very powerful Terra type that you can utilize as well as you have actually done so far. So I guess going with that, do you have any shout-outs that you would like to go ahead?
Oh yeah, I just want to shout out my family, my little brother, my mom, and also like all my roommates that have been staying with me here in Utrecht. So Fede Campo, that is also going really well.
Yeah.
Oliver Escolin, that is also going really well.
Yeah.
Gio Tarlau, which is also going really well. And Arash, which is always like good to have like a world champion, you know?
Arash is Arash.
Yeah, exactly. It's just Arash.
Exactly. You already know he's going to be there, his shot. I mean, we had discussions with a couple of the Spanish trainers yesterday on the floor with some of the interviews. They felt that Spain was the #1 strongest region in Europe. So do you have any comment that you would like to provide to that as well?
I'm just going to say we're going to see, like in this region, how this turns out.
I mean, it's very exciting to actually see all of these different regional-based trainers come into the fray, of course, for these European events. So what we'll do is we will wish you all the best. It has been a pleasure, as always, to actually have you join us. So we're going to go ahead, cut to a very short break, where we will be back with round 4 of Day 2 Swiss. You won't want to miss it.